course, that was the famed Egyptian actor Youssef Shaaban, who died on Sunday at the age of 90. Of course, a beloved Egyptian actor who will be missed by all the Egyptians as well as all the Arab fans. Now we are delighted to be joined over the telephone by Dr. Youssef Mazhar, winner of the State Appreciation Award in Scientific Research. Dr. Youssef, a very good afternoon to you, sir.
Yes, good afternoon. How are you?
Thank you very much, Doctor, for joining us. I'm very well. Thank you. Now, the head of the Egyptian Space Agency announced that Egypt will launch a satellite in December 2021 named NEXT for further scientific research in order to promote space science in the country. Now, this is one of a number of projects that is being carried out by the Egyptian Space Agency. Could you tell us a bit about the different purposes for the launching of these satellites, sir?
Well, you see, satellites have existed for a long time. Mm-hmm. And if we go back in history, even in science fiction, Jules Verne and his writings were always imagining that people could go into space and that people could fly into another planet. Mm-hmm. So this has been the dream of mankind to get away from the Earth's surface and go up into space. Now, before we go into answering question directly, let us say, what are the advantages to get into space? Yes. At the beginning, of course, there was a lot of energy towards, let's say, military. That means if you were high up above the Earth and you could see and you could travel outside the Earth's hemisphere, no doubt there will be a tactical advantage for military purposes. But this sort of cooled down a little bit now. We don't talk a lot about it, but we look about what are the advantages of getting into space. Now, getting into space can be in a number of areas. One of the very prominent areas, and we don't realize it, and we are always talking about more complicated things, is that we are on the air now. And we are on the air because we are broadcasting up to a satellite. The satellite is what they call the geophysical satellite. That means it has a fixed point on or towards the Earth or the broadcasting station. So now, instead of having local broadcasting along the Earth's surface, we go up to a satellite. Our satellite is NILESat, for example, at the moment. And we have a direct line of beaming up. You can put up to 50 channels, 100 channels, 300 channels, and they are beamed down anywhere on the Earth. So let's say even what we are using at the moment is that we are broadcasting on a NILESat or any other sat with another country. Yes. So this is now very much accepted, and we forget about it, but we don't forget that every now and then we have to send up another satellite, because satellites have got a lifetime. So this is broadcasting or communications. Communications means sending messages. They're not sending messages by Morse code or by radio. It goes up and down and into space. Right. Now, there's another area, of course, more let's say more attractive for people to talk about. Now we hear that even in the countries around us, there are attempts to manufacture a rocket and to send up, to go into space and to get out of the space and land on another planet. Yes. So now we have space, and we have research into space, and looking into another planet, you must ask yourself why. Yes. And of course, scientists are always looking right ahead, years ahead, and there are some satellites, real satellites, not artificial satellites, that have got minerals on them. So we know that some time ago, the last of the trajectories was a Chinese robot and a vehicle which went on the dark side of the moon. Now, before that, we have seen many things on the light side of the moon. Yes. Because it's easy, can you see where you're going? Now, they made the dark side. Now, the dark side will probably reveal more mineral wealth, more very special metals that we might need. So that's another area where we think, and the scientists are sure, that all these, let's say, satellites around us, natural satellites, not like the one we sent up, which is a man-made satellite, they will probably give us new minerals, new faces. And maybe the last thing we saw, which was another landing, that they are trying to find if there is water on any of the planets, whether it's the moon or Mars. Mars is very favorable. Mars, of course, is very, very hot. And, you know, life cannot, if we think that people are thinking of going to another planet and getting fed up with the Earth and going to another planet, but you must have water. So the last things which were in the news last week were brick craters which looked like a lake, a big lake, but of course there's no water on it. But this gave them big hopes that there could have been water, and maybe there could be water in the future.
Yes.
And so that gives hope, because without water, you cannot have life.
Yes.
So I'm just spreading myself, you know, so that we think that it is not one area that going out of the Earth sphere and getting into vehicles that can take us up into the other world. But we can answer your questions if you've got any more detailed interest in anything we're talking about.
Indeed. Dr. Yusuf, Egypt is going to host the African Space Agency after the AU's approval in cooperation with Kenya, Uganda, Ghana, Nigeria and Sudan. And a joint satellite is going to be launched by these countries. How is this step important to the African continent as a whole?
Well, you see, in all these different areas, that's why we spent some time on the different areas.
Yes.
Whether it is communication, or it is broadcasting, or whether it is exploring, or even whether it is even espionage, because you can see much better anything from that height. You see, once you're up at this height, you have no interference, and you can see, you can plan, you can see where there are congestions, etc. Not only military. Now, when we come to Africa, of course, is a very interesting case, and I know that your station has talked a lot about Africa.
Yes.
What we want to say is that the African countries, let us not think that they are backward. They are not backward.
No.
The amount of, let's say, treasures under the ground, whether it's copper, whether it's cobalt, whether it's even items that might be useful in atomic energy, it's all there. Now, what is the problem? The problem was that the connection, or Africa's connection, was always through Europe. Through Europe, that means everything that they found, there was some place in Europe, whether it was the United Kingdom or France or any of the countries.
Right.
Even Germany had colonies in Africa. Now, they have now realized that they can do a lot of things together. And the number of new African combinations in the north, in the east, in the west, and in the south, put together groupings of countries like the ones you just mentioned now, which was a very good indication of, and a good question about it. Now, if you get all these countries together, they can be a more strength in it, they can trade easier, they can connect easier, they can have common broadcasting, and even, you know, even everybody who talks about anything nowadays talks about epidemics. Now, epidemics, can you imagine that now many of the stations, people are, let's say, doing their broadcasting from home.
Yes.
And so that you don't have to, even the broadcasters themselves and the staff like yourself, they are at home and they are connected by a number of programs. I won't say what the programs are.
Yes.
Everybody's trying to find them out now. So you can sit comfortably at home, prepare your work. Even some of the science programs that I follow, they are at home and you find them in their shirt sleeves with their bookcase behind them. And through this connection of broadcasting, let's say, satellites, all these countries are grouped together. And slowly, they will have satellites which are more dedicated to their areas. Now, don't forget that our satellite, NileSat, it has got many members from other countries,
yes,
not
indeed.
only
yes.
Egypt. And in fact, it's a very lucrative, let's say, project, because the members, if you look through the list, you find members from everywhere. But everybody, also in Africa, says, why don't we have our own? Why don't we have our own satellites? So that's why we are seeing that all these groupings, which are beginning, were originally political, but then they became economic, and they are divided, let's say, I said very quickly, geographically, but they're also divided in many other things. So you see there, I think I'm trying to put more expansion to the questions that you are very kindly starting to
absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. Youssef, let's talk a bit about the importance in investment in scientific research. In your opinion, Doctor, what are the main factors needed to boost this investment in scientific research as part of the country's sustainable development plans?
Yes. Well, look, countries, when they first, after the Islamic world had a lot of inventions and had a lot of things that were discovered, light was discovered, all these things were discovered, and we know the names like Razi, we know Ibn Battuta, we know Ibn Sina, we know all that. But all this knowledge, at one time, it stopped, and it went into the Renaissance into Europe. And Europe took over these researches and progressed it. They translated into their own languages. They were written in Arabic. They were translated into English and French. And most of the museums in the world, which we call them Islamic museums, will show you all the scientific work was done in the Middle Ages, known in Europe as the Dark Ages. And when all this knowledge went, it became let's say, the illumination of the West or of Europe. Now, all this is scientific research.
Yes.
But this is historical. Now, let us look at, if you want to stay ahead, you must have scientific research at different levels. The first level is to have institutions that are, let's say, you call it National Center for Research or the Global Center for Research. For each country has got, Egypt, of course, has got a very big research organization. It is situated in Doki, and they are very well connected. They have got different areas, so they are researching everything. They're even researching on cotton, better kinds of cotton. They're researching on agricultural things. They're researching on everything.
Right.
Now, this is on state level, but since I come from industry myself, I would like to say that many countries, and Egypt also, have set up what we call industrial research centers.
Yes. To involve the private sector.
Are very specialized.
Yes.
Okay? So you'll find that in a group of companies that work in cement, for example, they have their own levels of research. You don't have to grab everything on the national scale.
Yes.
You can have all the cement companies having a joint
private partnership, yes.
But it's more aimed at improving the quality of the work, making more effective things. So this is very important. In Egypt, we have many. We have got electronics.
Lots of different companies, yes. Doctor, let me ask you, how important is it to boost and support scientific research in Egypt, especially for our young scientists? We have some of the best minds in the world, but most of them, or some of them, seek, for example, employment opportunities abroad and go to other countries. How can we support scientific research to encourage these young scientists to pursue a career inside the country? And what would this mean for Egypt on the long term?
Yes, well, this, of course, your question is our aim. It's our dream that we can do a lot of this research ourselves. But let me say, research has no boundaries. I think it's very important to have your research in your own country. And I don't want to go outside, but look at the amount of research that's being done now to find a solution for the epidemic we are in. We have research, this is medical research,
yes,
or research against, let's say, protection against illness. You find that some institutions were in England, some were in the United States, but you were not surprised to find that India, which is, let's say, a massive continent by itself, had its own research in this area of having a counter-exception against this epidemic we have. And they are producing, and they have done their own research work, and you'll find that some, I mean, I'm not talking medically, but the normal layman hears about 2 shots, hears about after that, they must be in a refrigerator, then there is more research, and it becomes 1 shot, and then you don't need the refrigerator, you can transport it easily, and you find that this is happening in the big countries, of course, because they've got tremendous budgets to do this. But I told you an example of India, and India is a large continent, and it's very developed. I went to India many times, and I saw research centers in electronics, in machine tools, etc. So you can do a lot yourself.
Absolutely.
But I think you should always think that you can never be alone. You must be aware of what's going on in other countries.
You. Yes.
If you find that, for example, people will come to Egypt to know more about cotton or to know about certain kinds of education, and we should be hand in hand with others, because the amount of research money that the funds is tremendous. So look for a good partner, a friendly partner. Sometimes it's now even political, and that's the way to do it. Because sometimes inventions come or new things come from very unknown or very small units.
Innovative partners.
We must be in this big family.
Yes, absolutely. Doctor, Egypt has more than 350 research institutions in various ministries and institutions. Do you think this is enough? Do you think we need more in terms of numbers or more in terms of funding for the scientific research projects?
Yes, look, your question has more or less, you've given the answer to what the answer is. Look, there is always new things happening. So if there is a new area like artificial intelligence, first, what we call AI, which is now everything is working, robots work with them, etc. Now that means there's a new area, robotics, there's a new area of intelligence. Everybody is saying we must have intelligent systems. All these words mean that it's something new. So when you say you make more areas, make more centers, the answer in the case as new technologies appear and the normal or the original centers are unable to follow or they need specialization, then you must start new things in this area. Also, geographically, for example, we have got desert institutions in Egypt, research institutions, and they're very, very famous because Egypt's deserts are full of very interesting things. And so Egypt has got a head start on desert research, for example. But, for example, if it's very, very, let's say it's rocket technology or something like that, why spend millions of dollars if you can join with somebody else and trade your information or join these groups and split the cost? So the answer is really both should be done depending on the development in new areas which need specialists, and also to compensate. Some countries don't have deserts. Some countries are rainy. Some countries are not. So you need every now and then this be done. And maybe the last question that I'm sure you want to ask is, should the government take care of all this, or is it the corporations, is it the companies who should be taking the financing of all this?
Burden,
this
yes.
is a very big. The answer really is very difficult. For example, you take the Far East, Korea, Japan, etc. Even some of the other countries now. You can have a lot in corporations. I mean, for example, electronics now in computers. You can have countries that you haven't heard of before, and now they've got tremendous research facilities. Some of them, the Far East Korea, for example, you find the number of things are even more than in the West. But there are, on the other side, there are places like Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley started in the United States in a very cheaper area. People, the weather was good. People loved to work there. And Silicon Valley became the place where a lot of research was done. And a lot of research came out and became the research center of the world. So all should go hand in hand.
Yes.
The important is to balance. Should the cement people get together and try and work on it? What about the electronics? And don't forget, there's a bit of secrecy between everybody.
Absolutely.
So you can join,
yes.
But everybody has got these little secrets.
Yes. Absolutely. Right. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank you very, very much, Dr. Yusuf Mazhar, winner of the State Appreciation Award in Scientific Research. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us this afternoon and for all your insights. And that's all the time we have for today, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Angie Mehermani. Thanks for watching.